What's up, folks? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review Godsmack's greatest hits album, Good Times, Bad Times, 10 Years of Godsmack. Now, Godsmack has really been successful. I originally thought that they kind of lost their touch after about 2008 or so, but they've had consistent hits. I just haven't paid attention to like the second leg of their career that much. But they dropped an album in 2018 that basically got 4 number 1s on the US rock chart. So I need to start messing with them some more. But basically, across the past several years on Acid Roots, uh, I reviewed everything they did up to 2006. So Godsmack, Awake, Faceless, The Other Side, and Four. And now I'm gonna get to the next bit of the chronological order, which is their greatest hits album. So this was by this point they were at 10 years. And they basically compiled almost all of their songs that were released as singles and plus gave us a brand new song. So I'm just going to have to say, we'll kind of go into it. I'm going to talk about the songs that were not quite, complete knockouts for me, and then we'll go through the albums that they released and kind of how some of these things work. So the thing about Godsmack is they're not exactly one-hit wonders, which is a great thing. I mean, they normally get to the third single, and at times they get to a fourth single, and that's kind of where most of these things go. I mean, Godsmack, their first album had 4, Faceless had 4, their EP had 2, and all the other albums, including Awake, which only has 2 songs on the greatest hits, had 3. So they always get to the third single, and it just is kind of. And really, when I had to look at the effects of it, when we talk about the impact of like a greatest hits, I'm going to give this a rather high score just because collectively their catalog is as exceptional as it is. Now, the thing about it, sometimes when we get to the fourth single, I have to say, well, they had 3 knockout singles, but the fourth one, while not bad, was just kind of serviceable and just basically average. Wasn't anything that just kind of blew me away. And it's the same thing with their 4 album from 2006. The third single, The Enemy, felt like a very basic Godsmack song. I mean, Speak and Shine Down were excellent, despite the fact that most people were kind of worn out from Godsmack from like Faceless and stuff. But yeah, I felt like The Enemy was the weakest of the 3 singles, and they didn't even attempt to put out a 4th single. That's kind of where it comes from, why it seems like, when you look at sometimes popular opinion, Godsmack, Awake, and Faceless were seen as their best 3 albums. But I'm going to listen to some of these other ones, their 2010, 2014, 2018 albums. I've actually listened to a bit of When Legends Rise, but I digress. So, all right. So the first thing we'll talk about is the single, the new song, the Good Times, Bad Times, which is a Led Zeppelin cover. Really does not fit the Godsmack mold, and that's kind of the thing. I don't know too many Godsmack cover songs, and I like when rock bands do it. It's a very stylish thing to do. Marilyn Manson does it all the time. I don't think, yeah, Marilyn, there's folks like that. So the fact that they just pulled that out of their ass is kind of interesting. So like I was saying though, it doesn't have like the feel of a Godsmack song. So you know how Marilyn Manson made like Sweet Dreams feel like his song. I mean, it feels like a stadium song, and Godsmack does not typically do stadium songs. I think the closest they got to that in their singles is just like I Stand Alone or Straight Out of Line. Those are like the most riotous kind of songs. I mean, they definitely have like headbanging songs, mosh pit songs, car songs, backyard get together songs, that sort of stuff, but they don't really have like stadium songs like Kiss and like Black Sabbath and some of those type people, Metallica. I mean, that's not really their style of thing. So for them to try it, I mean, while it is interesting just to kind of see a new taste for Godsmack, it's not the best song in the bunch. And considering that the new song is kind of somewhat of a selling point, it's like, well, I would probably give the song a 7. I mean, I liked it just because, at least knowing what a Godsmack Stadium song would kind of be like, but it's not my go-to Godsmack song, so that's kind of the thing. But I mean, that's kind of what I took away from it. That's the only new song. I would have liked the second song in there, just kind of like a 2007 rendition of something that they would have been up to. I know they had songs like that. They could have done another song like Speak, something maybe a leftover off of 2006, but it's kind of concise. I mean, they just basically put the hits on there, and that was how it went down. But all right, so we're going to talk about the album. So, Godsmack is typically seen as the best album. Awake, that I feel like that one's kind of underappreciated. Faceless had, the mega hit I Stand Alone, and it just had a bunch of hits on there. That's a pretty successful album. The Other Side, I don't hear a lot of reception on that album, but that's a brilliant project. I really liked that when I found out about it, and 2019. And then 4 is kind of, I guess that's kind of seen where Godsmack started to not be as mainstream as they were. But I didn't have too many problems with 4. I mean, there's songs I like off of that. It's another underappreciated one. So the singles, Whatever and Keep Away, are excellent Godsmack songs. I mean, those would be, hits right there. Voodoo is a brilliant Godsmack song. I think you can find that on radio. It feels just like a stoner song, any sort of high that you're trying to get. It's just a real different kind of song. I loved it back when I first heard it. And Bad Religion is kind of the bad egg in the bunch. I mean, it's not a horrible song, but the instrumentation is not, the riffs are not quite as electric as Whatever and Keep Away. So you can tell that, I mean, obviously it's the 4th single, so most of the time by that point, but it seemed like they kind of got winded. So Awake only has 2 singles on here, and both of them are excellent. You probably heard Awake before if you're about my age, and Greed is, a great follow-up song just to kind of help out with that project. But Bad Magic is not on here. I'd probably say if it were, I'd have to say once again that that's probably the weak link in the bunch. I don't remember it. I don't remember that song that well. I reviewed that album several years ago, but I think Godsmack kind of knew that it might take away from the effectiveness. But yeah, getting to Faceless, I Stand Alone, brilliant first single, deserved to hit #1 on the Billboard, very recognizable, was on the Scorpion King soundtrack. Straight Out of Line, I think, hit #1 on the rock charts also. Another good hit, great hook, that sort of stuff. Serenity is kind of like Voodoo, where it's not like heavy metal as much as more acoustic and mellow and kind of relaxed kind of pace that it gets at you with. And singing is brilliant on the song. I listen to that song frequently. And then Realign is kind of like Straight Out of Line, just a slightly, like maybe a notch weaker, like a one shade weaker than Straight Out of Line, but it's still a brilliant song. So all the singles on Faceless were brilliant. I mean, I didn't have any complaints with the Faceless singles. The Other Side, which I feel like once again is overlooked, Running Blind is a brilliant acoustic song, and real dark and depressing. The singing really kicks ass in there. And then Touche, I didn't really listen to that much. I said I didn't like it last year, but I kind of do now. I mean, when you think about it, perfect backyard song, just kicking back, maybe having a few beers, talking about, just having standard convo and that sort of stuff. I mean, it's really such a mellow song, kind of just like Serenity, except it's somewhat depressing, but then also just kind of very ambient. That's just kind of the thing. It just has, like, I think Sully Erna really knows how to, he's stoic, but it just kind of comes off as like more like aloof in some cases, just kind of like a loner type thing. But I Stand Alone kind of was more defiant and more aggressive, but that's kind of like a different version of that. So, it works. You'd think it's kind of like just it feels really like a song you listen to in the car more so than you know like at a concert or something. But then the album 4, Speak and Shine Down are brilliant songs. I felt like those definitely deserve to kind of hit like the spots they did on the charts. But then The Enemy didn't really have interesting riffs on there. So I mean, I think that's kind of had to do with why 4 wasn't as well received, is because only 2 of the singles really hit that well. At least with Awake, I think Bad Magic was probably better than The Enemy, but by that point it was just kind of, I think for Godsmack to have taken 3 years off and then kind of only put out 2 decent singles, I mean, that was kind of the problem there. So, but yeah, that's the project. If I had to rank these, I'd say it'd probably be Faceless, then Godsmack. Well, actually, no, it'd be Faceless, then The Other Side, then Godsmack, then 4, then Awake. Even though Awake is not horrible, I want to stick up for the album 4 just because I feel like it's underappreciated. So I'm going to give this album a 9 out of 10 because out of 16 songs, there are really only 2 that I would say if I heard the songs, I would not like say, okay, I can, if I heard it on the radio, like I wouldn't turn it off. So The Enemy and Bad Religion are the only ones that just are not like, they don't have, it's not so much they don't have appeal, but just like, uh, they're not mesmerizing. That's kind of the thing. So that's how that works. I mean, all these songs are good, but just in terms of like when you hear "I Stand Alone" or when you hear whatever, or if you like acoustic, trying to, if you hear "I Stand Alone," if you hear whatever, "Awake," "Keep Away," "Straight Out of Line," "Speak," some of those songs. I mean, those are the blockbusters. But then if you actually have appreciation for rock and rock bands past the first single, then that's obviously a good touch, and that's just kind of where it comes from. But as far as that goes, it's really like the third and sometimes fourth single that just didn't do it. But Faceless didn't have that problem. So I give this album a 9 out of 10, which is exceptional. And I give them credit for the new song that they put on there, the Led Zeppelin cover. So it's a different look for them, and it worked. But like I said, I give that song a 7. So yeah, so all in all, I would definitely have to say, as far as Godsmack, that's it's a good place if you just want like sheerly the hits and you don't want to switch CDs to get to their different albums. So it basically has everything, and then it even has a new song. So